up here. First slide up here. And so today we're going to be talking about the Community Opportunity Readiness Program. Okay, here's just a little outline of the presentation. First, we're going to have an overview of the Community Opportunity Readiness Program. Then we're going to talk about the intake process, business support, economic opportunities, and then contacts and just Q&A at the end. So what is CORP? So the Community Opportunity Readiness Program, or CORP, provides project-based funding to support First Nations and Inuit communities in their pursuit of and participation in economic opportunities. CORP supports opportunities with the potential of generating incremental community economic benefits. Examples of this: employment, business revenues, leasing revenues. So here's the eligibility and assessment criteria. So here's just a list of those things that make you eligible and the things that we'll be assessing when we look at a CORP project. One, is this an eligible recipient, First Nation community? Eligible project, there are some things that make something ineligible and eligible, but pretty well. It is a project that is supported by the community that will have economic benefits. Eligible expenditures within the application. Again, we need to make sure that that project is supported by the nation through a community plan. This can be an economic development plan, a CCP, anything that kind of states that the community is in support of the project has been vetted through the community. We need to see that the application contribution amount meets minimum requirements. That is something that we can go through. We have that conversation. We'll speak to it a little bit more at the end with the economic development officers and nations wanting to put an application in. That's something that we can talk about before you send the application in. The business has to be 51% Indigenous owned. All reporting has to be in good standing. When we speak to that, we're talking about economic development project reporting, so not community infrastructure, that sort of thing. So we're talking about the reporting for economic development, and also audits can be an issue as well. Application complete and supporting documents have been provided. So again, just making sure that that's all there. Land tenure and environmental requirements have been met, and shovel ready criteria. So, but that is only really for the projects over 250. For the development projects, that's when we're trying to get to that point of having the shovel ready criteria met. Now, what is an eligible project? So these again are projects with the potential of generating incremental community economic benefits. And those benefits can be the business revenues or leasing revenues. Ineligible projects are social enterprises, not-for-profits. Projects that do not meet the 5-to-1 ratio. And when we talk about that, we're saying if Canada puts $1 in, we need to see that $5 is going to come out through revenues for the community benefits. Projects that do not or do generate new sources of revenue, example, office expansion for the economic development corporations. Josh or Vanessa, can you help me out with that one? I'm trying to figure out what we mean by that. Projects that do generate new sources of revenue, example, office expansions for the economic development corporation. I think maybe that's supposed to say do not generate new sources of revenue. So I think we're going to have to fix that one.
Yeah, do not should be.
Yeah,
that should what it is. Yeah.
Food security and utility, which collects user fees. So here is just a snapshot of the CORP regional versus the CORP national. So regional on the left, right, national on the right there. So our BC regional process, which runs from January to March. So this is the time when we're asking nations to contact the economic development officers to talk about projects. And March 15th is when the application is due. And this is for projects up to $250,000 and planning stage development type projects. And typically speaking, we'll support up to 80% of the eligible project costs, again, due March 15th. So when we're looking at the regional process, we're actually working towards the national process most likely. So the national process, which is also called CORPF, and that runs from October to January. These are for projects over $250,000, and these are for those economic infrastructure, construction, acquisition type projects. We will fund up to 66% of the economic infrastructure projects, for a total of maximum of $3 million. For the business or the equity gap projects, for acquisitions of businesses or startup of businesses, it'll be up to 40% for the establishment of a new business and up to 30% for the acquisition or expansion projects. Those applications are typically due in December, and last year they were due December 21st or December 4th, 2021. Here's just a little snapshot of the intake process. So we have our call for proposals. We do our pre-screening again, and that's when we ask nations to contact economic development officers just to discuss the projects. We accept the applications, and then that will be due on March 15th, but we accept them earlier, obviously. Then we start to review and rank the projects, and hopefully after that, project approvals. So next speaking will be Josh here.
All right. So talking a little bit more about sort of the streams of funding we have. For community-owned businesses on the left side here. So this would be like single businesses. So for projects up to 250K, you can apply through the regional process to look at things like feasibility studies, business plans, design work, and also accounting, operational plans, and things like that for single businesses. And then once those plans are ready and complete, and you have a viable opportunity and it meets the shovel-ready criteria, you'd apply to the national process for equity gap for the single business. So that would be for construction startup costs, establishment, acquisitions of the business, and things like that that aren't soft costs. So that would be soft costs or the feasibility, business plans, things like that. So that would sort of be the process for community-owned businesses, like single businesses that they're looking at making, like let's say a gas bar, or you want to acquire some business that's already established. And then on the on the right side here, we have economic opportunities they're not related to a specific eligible business. So this would be for let's say your larger economic development projects and opportunities like business parks and things like that, where they would support multiple businesses. So again, for projects up to 250,000, you'd apply to the regional program under economic opportunities. So these would be for planning, design, environmental work, things like that. And then once all the shovel-ready criteria are met, we would consider projects over 250K under the national process, under economic infrastructure. So it would be site development. We don't pay for the building of the buildings per se. Let's say you're building a business park. We don't fund the buildings per se. We fund the site development. So that would be the water supply, treatment systems, sewer, electrical, energy systems, roads, sidewalks, all those sorts of things to support the economic infrastructure. So a little bit more detail on the equity gap. So this would constitute a community-owned business and can be a single business or several interrelated businesses that would be owned or operated by the band or the ECDEV Corp. The concept should be supported by members by a community plan, so an economic development plan, strategic plan, or a CCP. Requirements for equity gap. So you need to have a business plan that needs to demonstrate that it's a good business case, has market and sensitivity analysis done. We would review all of these prior to determining that the project is shovel ready. We need a confirmation of all sources of funding for the project. So one big caveat is that for equity gap, you need at least 40% of the costs to be covered by a commercial loan. So from a bank, and we'd need to see like a confirmation from the bank that they're willing to support the project with at least 40% of financing. We need proof that the business would at least be 51% owned by either an active corp or the interest or the band. And there should be a certified business valuation for acquisitions. So if you're acquiring a business, you need to have a certified business valuation done by a business valuator to be eligible. And we also need financial statements for the last 3 years if you're planning on expanding an existing business. So we need to see that the business is viable and can sustain itself, but would be more profitable with the expansion. Next, so on a different stream, the economic infrastructure projects. So these are opportunities to support, these are opportunities that are supported by members in the, as I said, the community plan or a land use plan, CCP, active plan, strategic plan. So we need to see that this is the direction that the community wants to go. They must demonstrate that it's a long-term economic opportunity. So yeah, it's like a business park or a large scale economic development opportunity, and we can see that it's viable and will be a long-term economic development opportunity. It should support multiple businesses and includes often leased lots for other businesses, spin-off businesses, and there should be a long-term anchor tenant. So that would be a tenant that is expected to be there long-term, like a Walmart or something like that. And it should be clearly shown that that is the anchor tenant, because that's something that we get a lot of hold up on. We're not quite sure who the anchor tenant will be, who's the guaranteed revenue stream for the next 25 years, and all that sort of thing. So again, the applicant must meet all the CORP shovel-ready criteria. So we have a checklist of all these shovel-ready criteria that we can share with you guys, and it should be tender-ready by the time we do our CORP review and approval. It should be ready to go to tender, and the construction should be ready to go by the time you get the approval. Last, the maximum CORP contribution is $3 million at 66.67%. So you can't use the CORP funding to fund the whole project. You'd have to support the project. The other 33% of the costs, either via your own contribution or financing or partner contribution. And this, another caveat is this also includes any funding previously received through the regional process. So up to 250K that you could have received for the regional process, that gets factored in to the 3 million maximum contribution from our program. So community economic infrastructure, this is a little bit of a flow chart on how it works. So for an economic infrastructure project, you'd have the planning stage. So you identified an opportunity, but you don't quite know that it's feasible. You want to do the environmental work. If it's on band-owned land on reserve, you need to do the environmental work, archaeological work, geotechnical, things like that would be funded under the regional program for planning. And then once you have all those sort of assessments, then you go into sort of the design stage. Again, this would be supported through the regional program. These would explore sort of permits, any servicing agreements that you might need to explore, engineering costs, and Class A design estimates. So that would be pre-construction. And then once all of that and all of the other shovel-ready criteria are met, we'd see you guys apply for the construction stage or through the national process. That would be for the site servicing, the site development, and the major construction costs. Next, we have, I believe, Vanessa doing these couple slides.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So here we have the CORP shovel-ready checklist for community economic infrastructure projects. So we need to demonstrate there's an economic opportunity such as leasing revenue or revenue from sales, as well as creation of new employment opportunities. We need to see confirmation of an anchor tenant. So if you have projects such as like a business park, we need to see that there is interest from potential tenants, and there is at least one anchor tenant. And that confirmation could be in the form of a leasing agreement. Confirmation of all sources of project funding. So this includes the cash contribution to the project, which can come in the form of a commitment letter or a BCR confirming the nation's contribution, as well as a confirmation of bank loans. And if there's any partner funding, we would need to see those commitment letters as well. Proof of land tenure and proof of land designation and land zoning. So depending on where the project is, sometimes it will be on reserve, and we would need to see either designation or zoning has been completed. But it could also be on fee simple land, in which case we would just need to see confirmation that the land is owned by the band. It could also be on crown land that has a long-term lease agreement. Those are some of the examples. For on-reserve projects, there needs to be a completed environmental impact assessment, as well as an environmental screening decision. So if you're unsure what the requirements are for any kind of environmental work, get in touch with us so we can get you in contact with the environmental officer. Copies of regulatory approvals, that includes permitting, construction permits, any other kind of, every project could be different and different requirements. So we just need to see that all of those have been met. Servicing agreements, so that could be with the municipality for water, as well as hydro. So any kind of service agreements that are required, we need copies of that. Tendering package is in place. Class A or B cost estimates have been obtained, and a stamped engineered issued for construction drawings, as well as the construction schedule. So I'll turn over to Phil for this slide.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. And I noticed like the key theme behind our CORP regional and our CORP PF funding is really focusing on investing in the land base and enhancing the land assets for First Nation communities. And from time to time, we do receive proposals through our CORP regional process, the funding program under 250,000 for projects that fall in different categories. So what we tend to do is look at the application, and we try to pathfind applications to the right source of funding. And recently we've been working closely with a number of federal and provincial partners, as well as Indigenous-led organizations, to find a home for some projects that may not be relevant to CORP regional, but definitely relevant to some of the other programs. So just going to go from left to right here, but Agriculture Canada is obviously one of our key partners, and they have a number of programs, which is the Agriculture and Food Systems Initiative. This is to fund any Indigenous-led agriculture initiatives, focus on anywhere from feasibility studies, business plans, to some small capital work. We do receive a lot of proposals for clean energy initiatives, anything from installing solar panels on band offices to finding alternative sources to become less diesel dependent. And so the primary funder that is really focused on space is New Relations Trust. They have the BC Indigenous Clean Energy Initiative. They're actually going to be doing a call for proposal fairly soon, and the information is on their website. And they do allocate approximately, I'm going to say about $2.5 million each year for feasibility studies. Once again, small scale installations. And they have a dedicated officer who can answer any specific technical questions related to any clean energy initiatives. For any agriculture or fishery types of initiative, we work closely with our colleagues over at the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. They have the PICFI program, which is the Pacific Integrated Commercial Fisheries Initiative. Once again, an initiative that funds feasibility studies, business plans, and once again, we can probably provide some information on that program. From time to time, just going to the bottom of the slide here, we do receive some inquiries or proposals for business incubators. As Don has mentioned, like, you know, our CORP regional and our CORP PF eligibility is really focused on land development, business infrastructure. So for any business incubator type ideas, we try to refer them to our colleagues over at Pacific Economic Development Can, which has a long track record of supporting technology incubators and tech commercialization initiatives. Moving to the right, any skills development projects, we definitely encourage you to kind of work closely with your what we call your ISET holders, the Indigenous Skills Employment Training Initiative. They do have funding for training initiatives, whether it's, you know, implementing like an impact benefit agreement, providing you know, training, life skills training, etc. So we generally try to work closely with our folks, our colleagues and our partners over at ESDC. And the final one that I just really want to emphasize is I know tourism has been dramatically impacted due to COVID-19 and the travel restrictions, but recently the Pacific Economic Development Canada has launched the Tourism Relief Fund. We really want to put a heavy emphasis encouraging anyone who on this call who has a tourism related project to contact Pacific Economic Development Canada. They have TRF for short is a $500 million national program. 10% of that is going to be targeted for Indigenous tourism operators. So that's about $50 million. So again, we're really encouraging anyone who has any tourism relief tourism related proposals, please contact Pacific Economic Development Canada. They are looking at proposals and applications online. Whether you're an Indigenous owned or First Nation owned business or off reserve Indigenous entrepreneur, they are looking at all types of tourism related projects moving forward. So that's it for me.
And so right now we currently have our call for proposals out for projects under 250,000, but the Aboriginal Financial Institutes also have an equity gap funding program, and it's specifically for First Nations, but also it can be for entrepreneurs. So they can support projects up to 250,000 for a single business. And they also have other programs as well, such as business loan programs, but they do have a grant program. These are the 4 organizations that and their contact information that currently have an equity gap funding program. And they have continuous intake throughout the year. So while we typically only do a call out, typically only once a year for projects under 250,000, you can apply to their program at any time. And the last slide is our contact information for the economic development officers. So you can get in touch with any one of us if you're thinking about applying to the program. And we can set up a pre-screening meeting to do about 30 minutes just to talk about the project, make sure that it is an eligible project before you get all the paperwork in order and start working on the application process. Just make sure that you've talked to us and it is a project that can move forward and through the process. And so that concludes our presentation now. I guess we'll just open it up for questions. I see that there were a number of questions in the chat, and I believe most of those have been answered. So if anyone has a question, you can either put it in the chat or put your hand up.
I'm just reading through them here just to make sure that everything was answered. Thanks, Josh, for answering.
Yeah, I've been frantically answering questions in the chat.
Oh, good stuff.
We see that Michael has a question. Michael, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I just really mostly wanted to introduce myself. New guy at Adams Lake Indian Band, so the Economic Development Officer, working with our Development Corp. And hello, Joshua. I know we've just touched base by email. We definitely have a few tourism relief type projects going and some land development infrastructure projects. So I wanted to actually connect with the right person. I guess that would be Josh, and just kind of get the stage one of just pre-screening the project to make sure that we're potentially on track.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Michael. Yeah, definitely. Let's set up a screening call to talk a little bit more about your potential project. I assume you're interested in applying to the CORP regional program this year or for next year.
Yes, yeah, for I guess the March 15th deadline.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'll just connect with you offline and we can set a time up or something that works.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
I see Dolly has her hand up there.
I do. Thank you for the presentation. Just if there was a question in chat about stacking funds for the other 33% that's required. Are we allowed to stack with other government funds like from Western Diversification or any other, or is that limited? I know that has been an issue in the past.
Stacking is allowed, but you still need to meet those minimum requirements. So if it is an equity gap project, you'd have to have that 40% financial loan, and you'd have to have 10% contribution from the nation. So what it sometimes does is it reduces the amount of CORP funding that goes in, but then it also puts your ranking up higher because there's less CORP funding requested.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't seem like there's any more questions, or I don't see anything else in the chat. I think we got pretty much everything.
I see that there are a couple of people that just joined, and just for your information, the presentation is over and the contact information is on the screen, and I will also send out the PowerPoint slides after to everybody who participated today.
And Svetlana, I think that the presentation itself goes online, right? Can-do website.
That's right. Actually, it's links to
Oh.
learning website. I will include that link in my email when I send out the slides. But yes,
Perfect.
I also posted the link in the chat
Oh, where it will be. Okay, perfect.
where it will be. Yeah.
So Thana, we just want to thank you for coordinating the logistics behind this workshop and doing all the behind the scenes work.
No problem. Anytime. Well, I guess if there are no more questions, then thank you everybody for joining, and thank you to our speakers today. And if there are any questions, contact information on the screen, and then you can also contact myself as well. So have a great afternoon, everybody, and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.